Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started. Again, I am Catherine Bracy. I'm the Executive Director of the TechEquity Collaborative. I want to thank all of you for joining us today for this really important conversation about digital access and education during COVID-19. As we know, schools are officially closed in the Bay Area for the rest of the school year. So that means that all school children are at home learning from home. Many of them do not have access to digital tools that they need to access their classrooms and their learning environments. And we as tech workers have an opportunity to help close that digital divide, not just for the rest of this school year, but hopefully for good. So that's what this conversation will be about today. We are, just to give you a quick update on who TechEquity is for those of you who are familiar or not familiar with the organization. We are a nonprofit that is based in Oakland but serves the Bay Area. We mobilize tech workers on a set of issues that we think will make it so that as the tech economy in the Bay Area grows, more people can benefit from that growth. We educate tech workers on the issues. We advocate, we do public policy advocacy work on those issues that we think will close the inequality gap in the region and in the state. And we connect tech workers to ways that they can participate in their community and get to know their neighbors better. And the issue areas that we work in are housing and workforce and labor. Now, this issue of digital divide does not fit necessarily squarely into either of those, but we think it's a fundamental issue area. Certainly, when we talk about equipping a future workforce, they need digital skills. And so we think this issue is really important and something that we can play a big role in the short term and hopefully in the long term as well. So before we get started, I just want to introduce our panelists. If you could all just quickly wave, turn off your mic and say hi and wave when I say your name, that would be great so everybody knows who's here. First, we have the Mayor of Oakland, Mayor Libby Schaaf. Thank you. We also have Seth Hubbert, who's the Executive Director of TechExchange. We have Susan Beltz, who's the CTO of the Oakland Unified School District.
Hi.
We have Melissa Dodd, who's the CTO of the San Francisco Unified School District. And we have Jenny Lamb, who is a member of the San Francisco Board of Ed and also an education advisor to San Francisco Mayor London Breed. And I also want everybody to know that Megan Abel, who is on our staff, is in the chat. She will be surfacing your questions. So at the end, we will have about 15 minutes for Q&A. If you have questions, please drop them into the Q&A function, not into the chat. The chat should be used for if you have a technical issue or something like that. We have Herman Calderon and Marion Wellington from TechEquity staff who are in the chat and can help you if you're having trouble hearing or if there's an audio issue or something like that. But if you have questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat as we go through the conversation. The last thing I will say is that for those of you who have been to our in-person events, you know that we enforce a code of conduct at our events. We are transferring that code of conduct to our online events as well. Though you won't, the participants won't have access to the microphone. Obviously, you can still participate in the chat. We just ask that you be respectful and kind and understand that we're trying to create a safe space for learning for everybody who is taking the time out of their day to plug into this issue. So just keep that in mind when you participate in the chat or when you are asking questions. So with that, we're going to get started, and I'm going to start with Seth Hubbard, who is the Executive Director of TechExchange. Seth, I'm going to let you introduce TechExchange, and then I would love for you to walk through some of these important statistics about the actual scope of the problem that we're facing in the region.
Excellent. Thanks, Catherine, and appreciate all that are tuning into this conversation. It's certainly one that I care deeply about. So I've been the Executive Director of TechExchange, which is for 5 years, and we're a nonprofit that's based in Oakland and really serving communities throughout the Bay Area. And our mission is centered around providing equity of digital access. And so I'll speak to some of our approach in a moment, but the kind of exposed digital divide that is in front of us because of COVID is something that our community members have been struggling with for a period of time. And so I want to first highlight, like, what's the scope of the issue? What are we looking at in terms of how many community members across the Bay are currently without access? And so, you know, the baseline that we have is American Community Survey data that takes data and info from communities that are struggling with both home computer at home, but then also access to high-speed internet or broadband. And so the numbers are overwhelmingly pretty stark for where we are at as a region overall, especially with us in many senses of the word being the tech capital of the whole world. Across the Bay Area at large, there's 1.5 million residents that don't have high-speed internet and access to internet through a computer at home. That sits right at around 20% of our population. So every 1 in 5 Bay Area residents lack that access. And unfortunately, the gap in access falls right along socioeconomic lines. And so when you filter for those in our community that are under-resourced in many ways, the number jumps up to around 40 or 50% of those households that are low-income households don't have access to internet and computer at home. So there's significant work to be done. COVID did not cause the digital divide, but it certainly has exposed the digital divide. And I'm, you know, silver lining on this is I think that there is huge opportunity to both respond to the significant digital access challenges that our community members have in response to COVID, but use that as a platform to really address this issue that our region struggles with at a systemic level. And move the needle so that in a year or two, we are far from having 20% of our population digitally disenfranchised. And so a quick word on our work at Tech Exchange. Really, we look to support all areas of digital equity at the access level. So we are active in providing workshops and running different levels of classes to build up community members' digital skills, really empowering them to you know, progress in their skill set so that they can get done what they need to get done online and feel comfortable in doing so. We also couple that with support with home internet access. And so that's a combination of providing free hotspot access to eligible families or doing hand-holding through the process of signing up for low cost affordable offers that are around $10 a month. And they have different eligibility requirements and different processes to sign up. So we really stand as a community partner to help folks go through that and get the services that they need, deserve, and want. Another element of our work is we offer free community tech support. So as issues inevitably come up with the use of technology with new users, we're there to provide a backdrop of support and be that guide on the side, helping them through any of their challenges with learning how to use these new tools. And then lastly, really our bread and butter is we have a large warehouse facility in West Oakland where we refurbish computers. So we route trucks and we pick up computers that are decommissioned by companies. We work with about 180 different companies throughout the Bay Area that contribute technology that comes off cycle, that's decommissioned from their employee use. And we bring that back to our shop, and we have a mixture of staff technicians, youth interns that we are also developing to learn IT skills, and then also community volunteers that go through all of that input, triage, you know, find what's obsolete or non-functional and send that downstream. But for equipment that comes through that is a great fit for a family that doesn't have a computer, we then reimage that, get that prepped, and then get that out both through our direct training programs, but then also through partners that are in need of computers for their constituents and community members. So we work deeply with schools and nonprofits, libraries, public agencies, et cetera. I'll pause there. You know, that we do have work that we're most immediately engaged in response to COVID, but that's in essence kind of high level where we at in terms of the digital divide across the region and Tech Exchange's overall approach.
Yeah, and before we thank you for setting the context, I do want to, we're going to talk more in depth about this at the end of the webinar, but I just want to preview that there are ways, specific ways that you all who are participating in this webinar can help. We will be sending an email with full details about all of these ways, but a lot of what Seth just mentioned, there are ways for members of the tech community, and even if you don't have technical skills or very in-depth technical skills, to help support. And so be aware, if you can't stick around for the whole thing, here's just a little bit of a preview of what you'll see in your email about how you can use your skills and resources right now to help close the digital divide. So now I'm going to move on to Mayor Schaaf, who is, of course, the mayor of Oakland. And I'm wondering, Mayor Schaaf, if you can speak to, from your position at sort of, leading the city, you know that this has been, the digital divide has been a challenge for school children and families for a while, and has been thrown into stark relief with the fact that kids are now learning from home for the rest of the year. How are you thinking about this as the mayor of Oakland?
Well, they always say that within every crisis, there is an opportunity. And this moment has brought into such stark relief how big the digital divide is and how critical it is, particularly in moments like these. With the shelter-in-place order, digital connectivity is literally people's lifeline to benefits, to information, to not feeling socially isolated. I have never felt more passionate about bridging this digital divide than I have right now. I can say that crises also inspire action. And so when the city of Oakland stood up our COVID-19 relief fund, we in just a short couple of weeks have gotten more than $5 million of contributions. And we have taken $500,000 immediately out of the donation that was announced today from Salesforce. And we are putting that into school efforts. We also in the mayor's office have formed a working group to really try and accelerate closing the digital divide, starting with households with school-aged children. We know that we need more than 13,000 hotspots and more than 16,000 computers in Oakland homes just to serve our public school children. That's not even covering the entire digital divide that Seth referenced before, which really touches 21% of our population. That is a huge number of people that are left out of critical access, critical information, particularly in a time like this. And so we are very pleased to be supporting the efforts of the Oakland Public Education Fund in partnership with Tech Exchange that is really elevating this as one of the highest priorities after, of course, meeting basic needs. And I know this is not technology, but I do think it's important that people know that we have first and foremost prioritized just making sure that our families are getting fed during this crisis. Many of our children rely on their schools to get their actual basic needs met. And so I really want to commend the district has stood up one of the most robust food security responses. And it's not just for OUSD students. Any person in Oakland with a minor child can show up and get grab-and-go groceries and other vital supplies. And the school district has kept that going during the spring break, is making plans to keep it going potentially throughout the summer. So obviously people can't be engaging in distance learning on an empty stomach. So I just want to also highlight that partnership that the COVID Relief Fund and OUSD has also been engaging in. I do think that we can come out of this not just doing things with this sense of emergency, but putting things in place that will help close what we know are persistent racial disparities, persistent impacts of institutionalized and systemic racism. I hope that we use this emergency to not just deepen those disparities and those inequities, but to truly shine a light on them and put things in place that will serve to close them, not just during the crisis, but for the long term. That's our opportunity. We are working in deep partnership with folks like Tech Exchange, as well as the Oakland Unified School District, to ensure that that's what we're doing quickly for our families. And I would welcome any questions during the Q&A part, as well as your suggestions about what you think the role of the mayor and the city can be. Obviously, in Oakland, I don't have any formal authority over the school district, but I have worked in very close partnership with them. It's a very deep commitment of mine personally. I'm a Oakland Public School graduate. I'm an Oakland Public School parent, in case you hear any things in the background. Actually, my kids are trying to figure out how to get on their first Zoom class as middle schoolers. And of course, you know, I have a deep relationship with Tech Exchange, back when it was OTX, and I got to run Oakland's first net day in 1996. I am that old. So this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart, and I believe that we have a moment that we can seize to actually make permanent advances in bridging that digital divide. Thank you.
Actually, can you speak to that permanence piece? Because I know that some of just the immediate, obviously we're all just in this sort of short term, let's get over the initial emergency, but have you given thought to how we might use this moment to institutionalize some change that will close the digital divide for good?
Yeah, for example, let's not lend households computers. We have to give them computers. Let's not just have kind of an emergency response where people come and hook them up. But you know, necessity is a wonderful motivator to learn new skills. So let's deploy tech volunteers, and they can do it by phone, they can do it lots of different ways, to actually get people comfortable using technology. I feel like a Zoomaholic these days. I mean, I've never spent so much time on a single application. So, you know, now is a moment. And there are kind of deals in place right now. For example, Zoom is waiving their 40-minute limit for the free account. What could we do to actually make that a permanent policy for low-income households? Comcast has special deals right now for internet essentials. AT&T, everybody's trying to show up for this emergency, but it's an opportunity to remind these companies that it is an emergency every day for Oakland's low-income families that are literally cut off from so much information, so many resources, if they don't have this basic digital connectivity from their homes. And so I just think everything we do, we need to be looking at it as something that's permanent, not just on loan, temporary during the crisis.
Yeah, and you said something earlier that isn't directly connected to school children, but is related to the digital divide and sort of education, and connects to our issues of workforce and labor, is the challenge that you know, people face if they don't have access to the internet. They may have used the internet at the library or some other community center that is now closed. How do they access services? How do they you know, apply for jobs? How do they just generally connect with the community? Can you say a little bit more about that aspect of the digital divide, and how we might help in that regard as well?
Well, again, you know, one of the maybe silver linings I see in this crisis is because we are teaching ourselves how to connect and commune digitally. Like, for example, I'm seeing far higher numbers of people participating in my virtual town halls than I've ever gotten to show up at an actual physical meeting. Every Thursday night, I'm doing a town hall with vital information that is really helpful to Oaklanders navigating this crisis. And we're making it available through Facebook Live, via Periscope on Twitter. YouTube, I've discovered, has amazing closed captioning for hearing impaired residents. And then we also have just done an old-fashioned dial-in through Zoom for people that don't have internet connections. But I'm getting, 1,000 people are participating every week, which is a number that would never show up in person because people have lives, they have responsibilities, they have kids to take care of. So this opportunity to teach people how to participate and have a voice in their government, I think could change political dynamics. And same thing, I find that when we talk about the resources for knowing what your rights are as a renter right now, for accessing tenant counseling, for applying for unemployment benefits or sick leave or any of the governmental benefits, almost all of them require that you go through the computer, that you email, that you submit your form on a web-based form. And so we clearly are just seeing how critical digital connectivity is, particularly in this moment. And people shouldn't have to just be at the library during open hours and wait in line for their chance to have an hour at a public computer. People are working long, hard hours, and for them to have access to these resources at times and in a place that is most convenient to them, we really can't say that we have equity until people have that connectivity from their homes.
Well, thank you for that. I don't know how long you have to stick around, but I
can
think
have this for an hour because I want to hear everyone's good ideas that are on this call. So I think you got me to 1.
Okay, great. Then I won't rush questions to you. We will cycle through the rest of the panelists and leave you for questions at the end. So now I do want to get the view from the ground from school districts, and we're lucky to have CTOs from both Oakland and San Francisco participating. I'm going to start with Susan Beltz in Oakland. Susan, could you talk a little bit about the challenges you're seeing for teachers, for parents, for kids, and how the school district itself is sort of responding to that on the ground need?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak with everyone today. I actually wanted to begin by sharing a statement made by our superintendent a couple weeks ago that reads as follows. This is a moment in our lives that requires all of us to reach deep, to find the strength we need to support not only ourselves and our families, but also those around us. In moments like this, we have to live our values. This is hard on everybody, but let's be real. There are families in our community for whom this is devastating. If not already, then it will be soon. We have to find ways to support them through this. What we are hearing is that there is no doubt this statement rings true today for many families in our district. For example, we recently learned that more than 80% of families at one of our elementary schools have one parent who has lost a job, and more than 60% have 2 parents who are now unemployed. Even prior to COVID-19, over 70% of Oakland Unified students qualified for free and reduced lunch, and many of these students were already impacted by the digital divide. According to the American Community Survey data provided by TechExchange, approximately 17,000 Oakland students, or approximately 1/3 of all Oakland students, lack home access to the internet or a computer. We are currently seeing this statistic reflected in the many requests received from principals and teachers related to home internet and device access, combined with the many requests made by Oakland Unified families directly to TechExchange. We fully recognize that we can't replace the value of in-person classroom instruction with distance learning strategies, but we need to ensure that our students have equitable access to the resources they need to continue learning and studying at home. With the guidance of our Chief Academic Officer, Sandra Aguilera, our teachers and principals have worked tirelessly to develop, share, and post their continuity of learning plans and resources for every school by grade level. These can all be found on our ousd.org website. Our school staff are engaging with students daily, and they are doing all they can to provide a connection and learning for our students. These include textbooks and other paper-based content and assignments, along with a range of online resources and educational technology applications. These include literacy applications such as Raz Kids and Lexia, math applications such as ST Math and Math Expressions, science applications such as FOSS Web, general learning resources such as Khan Academy, And really, we have about 80 or more educational tech applications and technologies that are currently in use across Oakland Unified. Teachers are also connecting to students directly through virtual technologies such as Google and Zoom. So while we do not yet have a full one-to-one program at Oakland Unified, we have created a robust technology infrastructure to allow teachers and students to fully integrate technology in support of student learning.
When you
That
say one-to-one, what do you mean by that?
I mean a one-to-one ratio of devices to students.
Got it, okay.
However, it's very important to emphasize that all online solutions to support learning during the current crisis require an internet connection and a device in the home. Our schools are actively assessing individual students' access needs, and they are coordinating with TechExchange on the distribution of devices and services to ensure that students receive that access. We're really deeply grateful to our partners at TechExchange, who have established the texting and phone banks to triage families' needs and also to ship laptops and hotspots directly to their homes. Through this partnership, over 600 families have been provided with a computer and internet access during the current crisis, and we're working with them and with our donors to serve many more. We've also developed a lending program to provide our site-based Chromebooks to students, and we are in the third year of our partnership with the Sprint 1 Million program, which provides internet-ready devices to high schoolers in need of access. So overall, progress is being made, but with the urgency and the large number of families currently disconnected, we remain in need of partners and supporters to help us fill these gaps more quickly. As it stands, the combination of the current crisis with the digital divide threatens to delay graduation and grade progression, further widen the equity gap for our students that are situated farthest from opportunity, and severely limit overall learning opportunities for unconnected and underconnected students. And this is particularly true for students participating in science, technology, art, engineering, and math, AKA the STEAM programs and pathways. We have to act now to prevent these negative outcomes for our students. Our most immediate need is to provide access solutions to our high school juniors and seniors so that they can graduate on time, as well as our earlier learners that are behind on grade level performance indicators so that they do not fall further behind. To close the large digital gap, our goal is to equip 100% of our student households in need with a home access pack of internet, a laptop, digital resources, and ongoing support for every student, which we estimate will cost approximately $400 per household. That includes the community outreach along with the distribution and ongoing technical support that TechExchange can provide each family. On a sustaining basis, we are absolutely not looking to quote unquote go back to normal with respect to the digital divide. We instead look to ensure that every student today and every student tomorrow has equitable digital access to support their learning and graduate college, career, and community ready. Again, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to speak today, and I really appreciate the continued partnership between the Oakland Unified School District, the Oakland Office of Mayor Libby Schaaf, and our community partner TechExchange to provide these home access solutions to support our students and families with internet, computers, and home access resources. We also appreciate the many philanthropic partners who are working with us to support students and families. Again, we know that distance learning is not regular school and that the guidance of educators cannot be swapped out for Chromebook and hotspot. But we look forward to our work together both today and tomorrow to fully bridge that digital divide for all Oakland students.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate you weighing in. I'm going to turn to San Francisco now, and we have both Melissa Dodd, who's the SFUSD CTO, and Jenny Lamb, who is a member of the Board of Ed and education advisor to Mayor London Breed, to weigh in with the San Francisco perspective. Jenny and Melissa, I know this is dangerous to do on a Zoom, but let you decide who's gonna go first. But it would be great if you could just reflect on what you've heard from Oakland and how much of that rings true for what you're seeing in San Francisco, and highlight where there may be unique needs on that side of the Bay.
Sure. Hi, I think I'm going to get started. I know Jenny will chime in. She might be having some audio issues. Right. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the panel and to share the experience of San Francisco and San Francisco Unified. As both the mayor was speaking and Susan, this all rings true for us here in San Francisco. And, you know, this is a monumental shift that has happened quite fast. And in San Francisco, we're looking to take a holistic and thoughtful approach to supporting our students, our families, our educators, our school leaders through this process and through this change. Similarly, just a little bit about the journey that we have been on, and it is most definitely a journey because we are building an infrastructure and a system in place as we're in it. And that's above and beyond the digital divide and the technology needs of our students. You know, we're very much focused on how are we supporting the social emotional learning and well-being of our students, of our families, and of our staff and teachers through this, so that the supports and resources to the best that we can are in place for the SFUSD community. So what that means on the ground in terms of San Francisco, for us, we've had, and I think Jenny might be back. I'll speak a little bit on the technology side.
I'm back.
Oh, wonderful. Do you want to jump in first in terms of the...
Yes, and apologies for my technical difficulties. This is exactly what we're talking about, right? Access to broadband and what happens when your audio goes out right before I go on as a speaker. So thank you so much, Melissa. We'll tag team it a little bit. Thank you to the TechEquity Collaborative for the invitation to speak to this important work. And speaking from being a Board of Education member for San Francisco, you know, we've really been leading this work and do every day to be child-centered, student-centered, and really leading with compassion and being human-centered, because we know that not only is it about, you know, digital and the tech equity gap and opportunity gap, but what we're really wanting to offer to our families and to our students at this time is support, right? Living in such a crisis and knowing that just how unstable every day may be for our students and families, we wanted to lead with that. And I think that's why we've taken the approach at the school district leadership from our superintendent, as well as our staff, our educators, and the Board of Ed, of how important it was that we lead with addressing the most basic needs of our students and families, that we tackle this digital equity piece coupled with distance learning that is new for not just San Francisco, but the entire country. And what this really means and what is lifted up, that public education is, as we all know, is the foundation to democracy, strong foundation to any society. So with that, you know, I just want to also pitch it to Melissa to talk about what the connectivity gap as we know it at SF Unified, and then I'll share a bit about the creative and innovative partnerships between the city and county of San Francisco, nonprofit provider organizations, as well as the school district.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so right, to begin to tackle our digital divide, like Oakland, you know, we needed to really understand and assess our needs. We had our estimates in terms which you heard earlier about around 14 to 15% of our families needing a technology at home and or internet access. And what we've have been experiencing is actually that need is much higher because given the pandemic, there are so many new variables at play that are impacting and requiring increased access for our families. For example, families that have multiple children and need to provide access for all children, oftentimes at the same time. So that looks very different from what that's the new normal. That looks different from what things were like previously. So from an estimate, we estimate about 10,000, if not more, of our students need access to a computer at home to support learning, and anywhere between 7,500 and 10,000 also needing broadband or Wi-Fi access. And so what we have been doing is, and starting when we began closing schools, distributing devices out of our school inventory so that we could get device technology as fast as possible into the hands of students. We then have shifted to more centralized deployments. We've done a lot of outreach with our school community, both through the schools. I apologize, I'm at a school right now and their phone is ringing. We're doing a deployment as I'm on this panel. And so we have been doing central deployments, doing a lot of outreach to families, calling, texting, emailing, leveraging our community-based partners to get the word out about how families can pick up a device to support their children. So to date, we've distributed over 8,000 devices, and we will continue with that into the coming week. And beyond. This week and next week, educators and principals are checking in with their families, checking in with their students. Again, another way to assess that need. And then that data is coming back into us so that we can help make the technology available. In addition to the technology, we're also in the process of setting up a helpline for families, not just for technology, but for all things. As Jenny mentioned, just all support that families need. Technology is a piece of that, and setting up a helpline for families. To date, on the technology side, we've fielded several hundred calls from parents. You know, how do I log in? What's my child's Google account? We are a Google district and leverage Google Classroom as one of our platforms. So really trying to provide that full sort of support beyond the device and our Wi-Fi access itself. In terms of internet access, that is a huge, we talked about the challenge and the divide that creates and just the imperative and need for it. So I won't go into that, but share some of the strategies that we've been working on. One, we are prioritizing our students in greatest need, our students living in public housing, our students living in single room occupancies here in the city. We are getting the word out about free or low cost options that are available through a number of the providers. I know Jenny's going to talk about some of our creative solutions to address internet access. We're also working closely with the city. The city of San Francisco has a fiber to housing program, and we're doing outreach directly to families and students who we know live in those housing developments so that they're aware of access that they have. And then we're also working on distributing hotspots to students who need. We too are part of the 1 Million Project through Sprint, and working through our AT&T partner as well to get hotspots for students in grades 3 through 12. And we're, lots of creative strategies to get the technology out. It's also challenging when we're in a shelter in place. And so all of our setups, right, need to ensure that we're practicing social distancing and ensuring the health and safety of the not just the technology team that's out there, but we have a whole cadre of volunteers and our school community who have been deploying, so working on that as well. And so some of those strategies include mailing of hotspots to homes, scheduling home deliveries. And I mentioned earlier too, just in terms of really needing to assess that need, we can't assume that every family can come to pick up a device. So finding out where the families are, it's been a lot of data analysis to understand where that need is and how we can connect with families to bring them access. And then before I kick it over to Jenny, I'll just share in terms of for SFUSD, you know, we've taken a phased approach to distance learning that is both digitally based, but also print based, and recognizing that learning can happen online, but happens offline, and providing supports and resources directly to families and students, and also to our educators to help them navigate this new normal. And with that,
So then Jenny, quickly over to you. We've got like 1 more minute before we go to Q&A, and I just want to remind all the participants, if you have questions, to please use the Q&A function below to ask them, and we'll jump to those in just 1 minute.
Great, thank you, and I'll try to be quick. You know, we really knew that this was going to be a sprint to kicking off our distance learning in the third phase of next week, actually, of April 13th, the week of April 13th. So we know that where our gap is about 16,000 of our students are without internet access. And so what we did was quickly bring the school district with the city and county of San Francisco, along with some two national nonprofit organizations, that now we're bringing in what we're calling super spots. And what that allows is to have concurrently up to 100 students accessing that technology at once. And so that's been critical in being able to partner with city agencies like Housing Authority, as well as city agencies that serve students and families every day. And again, Melissa already covered that. Our lead is really around the congregation of students that we know are in high need, like public housing is first and foremost, and then our SROs, and traditionally neighborhoods and communities where we've known that broadband access has been an issue. And so we're really excited to be able to partner with Education Superhighway and the 1 Million Project Foundation to quickly get 25 of these super hotspots out in the community. And we're just thrilled to be able to also learn and iterate that we're one of the first urban districts to have this partnership. And I know that there'll be lots of learning and sharing with, you know, on a national level as well.
Great, thank you both so much. I am gonna, before we kick it into questions, just want to reshare. Oh, this isn't gonna do it for me, is it? Let me stop that. Well, I still haven't figured out the total tech flow here of how to share a hidden screen. But anyway, just a reminder that you can help in supporting both the Oakland Unified School District and San Francisco Unified students. Megan has posted a sign-up form in the chat. And hopefully we can repost that so it's at the top of the list there. If you want to volunteer, now volunteering means anything from supporting a family, get their machine set up, or just do, you know, basic tech support for them. If you've ever helped your grandma set up a modem, this is for you. Up to doing more intense things like helping to refurbish computers in the Tech Exchange warehouse. Things like that, and also other ways you can help support that go beyond just the digital divide. Megan's posting that sign up form in the chat, and I hope you'll all sign up. Tech Exchange obviously is leading these efforts in Oakland. I'm sure there are similar efforts in San Francisco, which we will send you all via email, but this is going to cost some money and they need money. So if you can't volunteer, then we hope that you will donate to Tech Exchange to make sure that all students have access to learning for the rest of the school year. Also, if you work at a company that you think has some hardware that's sitting around, we would love for you to donate it. And you can connect with us directly on that. I believe if you sign up through the intake form, we can get that going for you. Tech Exchange is able to pick that stuff up and work with your company. I know most of you aren't actually at the building, but to work out the logistics of that. You can also donate individual hardware, and if you are into either donating individual hardware or serving as a hub where other people can drop off machines so that Tech Exchange doesn't have to go to multiple locations to pick up machines, that would also be a great thing for you to do. Doesn't require any technical skill, does require you to have some sanitation materials so you can wipe down machines when you get them. And of course, we're going to be doing this work for the future. We've been doing work to close the inequality gap in the Bay Area for 3 years now, and we will continue well beyond the current crisis. We really need, if you work in tech, we really need your support by becoming a TechEquity member to support this work and all the other stuff we're doing. So those are the ways you can help. Now we're getting to Q&A, and I want to welcome Megan back, who has some questions that she's surfaced from the Q&A that she's going to put to our panelists. Megan Abel is our Director of Advocacy and Organizing.
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks to all of our participants for submitting such amazing questions. There's been some lively discussion happening in the chat and some great questions in the Q&A. To kick things off, I'm going to start with Zahara's question. Zahara asks, in LA, LAUSD has partnered with Verizon to distribute laptops to students, but rollout has been slow and it's difficult to track which households don't have access to a computer or Wi-Fi. What can LA learn from the Bay Area in bridging the digital divide for students and families? I'm guessing, Mayor Schaaf, you've probably been talking to some other cities about what they're doing, so maybe you have a perspective on this one?
Sure. And I apologize, I was a little distracted because I was trying to answer something in the chat about someone mentioned that Senator Kamala Harris had also highlighted this as a big priority. And I want you to know that as you get your ideas, Oakland obviously works with other big city mayors to advance an advocacy agenda. And we are very focused right now on what we're calling the fourth stimulus or fourth relief bill. We know that the federal government hopefully is not done and rent relief, but I think this digital divide should be two of the highest priority issues that we advocate for at the federal level. So repeat the other piece because I was focused on that other thing.
Sure thing. Zahara's question is, in LA, LAUSD has partnered with Verizon to distribute laptops, but the rollout has been slow. What can LA or perhaps other cities learn from how the Bay Area is tackling the digital divide?
You know, I think that, I mean, I love companies. It's great when they want to do a big press thing so they get publicity, but let's be honest, we're not going to do this one company at a time. And so organizations like TechExchange play a critical role because they, one, they're consolidators of resources from a lot of different sources, big and small. They also are really helping an environmental cause, which is they are refurbishing and cleaning up and preparing used computers that are perfectly good for household use. And so they're keeping those computers out of the e-waste stream. And so I just think every community needs a tech exchange. So, you know, shout out to you, Seth, and your organization, because, you know, again, often when a single company is doing an effort, they want their publicity from it. And so I think it's a lot faster and more efficient to consolidate smaller efforts rather than just rely on one, you know, person who's going to come save you.
Yeah, and I'd like to actually put that to Jenny and Melissa, because it sounds like, I mean, 8,000, you've reached 8,000 students with devices so far. That seems like a lot in a short period of time. So I'm wondering if you all have lessons that LA could pull from how you've been able to move that many devices so fast.
Melissa, maybe I can just jump in real quick before we, you could speak to this both centralized and school site distribution. I think a huge part of our success is also tied to leveraging and engaging and activating our nonprofit sector, right? That those nonprofit organizations have the relationships with the students and the families that if the system isn't able to reach. And so we're just so fortunate, you know, between the Department of Children and Youth and their families, with Mayor Breed and her leadership of prioritizing digital equity and equity in general for residents of San Francisco, that we have a very direct charge of we know exactly what we hold ourselves to that success.
Yeah, most definitely. Our partnerships and our CBOs and nonprofits have been hugely helpful. And part of that too is, you know, we have relied on multiple strategies to reach our students and families with our partners, through our schools, and then what we've done centrally to really understand what the needs are. And then in terms of mobilizing, I mean, it is, we were joking that we're like we feel like we're like supply chain experts now. It's logistics. And so putting a process in place that we have a distributed volunteer approach. We did a call out for volunteers. So on any given day, we probably have 40 plus people to 50 people on various shifts out doing central deployments, and putting systems in place to help make that as intuitive and easy for them as possible. And then building all of the systems to be able to track the devices and make sure that we're addressing the need. So it was really a lot of shifting our prioritizing the distribution efforts as our number one priority as a district, and calling on colleagues in other divisions, calling on our school leaders and our educators who are willing to volunteer to help make this a reality. It really is an all hands, all hearts on deck approach that is needed.
That's great. Megan, I'm going to go to you for the next question, but just want to call out that Oakland also moved really fast to get the Chromebooks that they had in the classroom out to households. And now that's not a long-term solution because the school district will have to get those machines back at some point. But in terms of just like addressing the immediate need, they were able to move very quickly on that front as well. So Megan, next question.
Yeah, next question I have is from Hella. Hella asks about the LA Times report that 15,000 high school students have been unaccounted for since the lockdown. New York City public schools have announced that there has been a high increase in chronic absenteeism. And I believe, she says that she believes that the data looks similar in all underserved and low income communities. If laptops are equitably distributed to all Oakland homes, how are we able to ensure that students are engaging in learning? How are we thinking about this issue of students remaining engaged, especially for students of color?
Maybe let's go to Susan on that one.
Yes, I would say that, I think that one thing I would say there is we have, through our school sites, done a wellness check with families. So that is a direct outreach to every family in our system. And so that's one bit of outreach that is happening with our schools. From there, I would say that, we are, in terms of being able to know that students are learning, we're also tracking participation starting this week, and that's going to help inform future outreach to families. In addition, there's data that comes through various applications and online programs that students use. So there's multiple avenues, but I think that an important point to emphasize here is that, again, we know this is not school as usual, and our solutions to this particular issue are absolutely going to evolve over time. But right now, I think it's mainly about that outreach and about tracking that the participation of students in the learning process.
Yeah, and Seth, just to you on that point, I know you all do a lot of work in helping families. It's not just about like getting them the device and then wash your hands of it, but there's a lot of follow-up work to help them actually use it and be connected, which is an important part of that engagement. Can you just talk a little bit about what that looks like? Like, how are you actually working with families? And for those of us who are potentially going to be volunteering to help, what that experience would look like for them?
Yeah, and I think it's related to the last question as well, around, solving this issue. It's not just a device and hotspot issue. Like those resources are necessary. We need the physical access points and we need the laptops, but it's the comprehensive wraparound services that it's really community organizing and providing social supports. It's what's going to take to close this equity gap. And so as we bake that into our model, we make sure that we help families with the kind of first level of support of, do you have a computer? Do you have internet? But if we leave it there, then that's going to quickly spiral down into being disconnected again, because we know that a lot more is needed. So we put a lot of resources from our team into working in language, in culture, having different ways that we can communicate with the community, helping with education building around why this is a priority amongst many other pieces that families are struggling with housing security, food security. That's part of the efforts that are needed in this space, is a lot of the underpinning of social supports and hand-holding and being there to answer questions. And so we have a whole department of our team that is just on that service delivery, while our warehouse focuses more on the raw assets to address the problem.
That's great. And I'm gonna let Jenny weigh in. I see you raising your hand, and then we'll have time for one more question.
Yeah, I really appreciate Seth's perspective and the approach, because absolutely at the Board of Education, you know, as we are rolling out this distance learning and the guidelines that we're giving to our educators and our site leaders, this is exactly this piece around, you know, the continuing role of counselors, nurses, case managers, family liaisons. Like, they are going to be key to the day-to-day of connecting with students that otherwise, you know, are facing, as we know, just challenges on a daily basis, and taking care of siblings, and, you know, really also finding that safe learning environment, because oftentimes the home may not be the safest and most conducive to learning. And so that's how we're working, I had mentioned earlier, with our community-based organizations, still within, you know, our shelter in place and distance, you know, social distancing requirements. But those are some of the innovative and creative ways that we're thinking.
Great. Megan, last question.
Great. Final question comes from Day, who asks, where can technology professionals capable of providing training and support plug into efforts to close the divide? I ask because I have this skill set and I'm looking for ways to contribute.
Oh, that was a softball question to end on, Megan. I appreciate it. So I highlighted some of that, but I'm going to let Seth kind of speak to the volunteer opportunities at Tech Exchange. And then, of course, we didn't, I feel like we were giving the San Francisco opportunity short shrift, but again, we will be sending a follow-up email to everybody that registered for the webinar with specific instructions on how you can sign up. And of course, the volunteer intake form has been posted in the chat, so you can sign up there. Seth, do you want to speak to the specific volunteer opportunities available at Tech Exchange for people with technical skills?
Sure. We have three kind of categories or profiles of volunteers that we're actively trying to fill roles for. And so quickly going through those, it's first, we need more support in our warehouse. We've actually, in the last couple of weeks, doubled our warehouse capacity just to keep up with demand. And there's a lot of hands that are needed to sort, prioritize, package, and
clean hands, right?
Yes, and I would mention that we needed more warehouse space because we needed to put in social distancing and sanitation procedures so that we're keeping our staff and volunteers safe. But we do need more people to help with those efforts. So that's one bucket. Another piece is we're really wanting to expand the rate that we can accept individual computer donations safely. And so we need volunteer support with setting up nodes throughout the region so that we can safely accept a lot of individual units. Because right now we've been prioritizing bulk donations coming from companies, but we know that people have laptops in their closet that are ready to give and could be a great resource for a family. And so we need some volunteer support with activating that more fully. And then the last piece that could be done virtually is we're expanding our direct service team to bring on volunteers that can help with tech support issues. So as families are receiving the raw asset supports around laptops and access points, again, these are new users that are going to inevitably run into challenges and have questions around both the device itself, but also all of the different distance learning platforms that they are going to need to be up and running with to support their child's education. So that could be text, phone support, and just availability if we had a network of tech individuals that could serve in that basic tech support role. That's another piece that we're actively organizing and would love to get some brain power to help build that more quickly.
Great. So if you haven't already signed up in the chat or in the sign up form that's in the chat, please do that. And of course, we'll be sending a follow-up email. We're also recording this so you can share it with your friends. Please share the sign up form with your friends. I want to thank all of our panelists. Each and every one of you is doing God's work right now. I mean, really on the front lines, and you took an hour out of that time to spend with us. We really appreciate it. So I would just say to the participants, if you're like me, you're at home. I don't have kids. I know many of you have kids and that's taking up some of your time, but if you find yourself with some financial resources or some extra time or capacity that you can lend to our neighbors who are really feeling overwhelmed at the moment, this is a great opportunity for you to do so. And really appreciate you spending an hour with us this afternoon. So thank you all very much. We will see you at our next event. Bye-bye.